I want to talk about the broken image of academia. And I don't think it's anything that you can do, but this is a really important thing to me. I had this conversation with two separate people today. And the conversation went like this. I'm doing this thing, but it's not as good as this other thing. And they were suggesting that they were somehow inferior. And one of them was talking about that they're getting into a fantastic program someplace, but it wasn't as good as something else. The other person was doing something that was really amazing, entrepreneurial. And they said that, well, it's just this little thing. And I want to remind you, I want to really remind you that all of these things, all of this stuff takes courage. It takes an unbelievable amount of devotion, and it takes something that a few people can actually do. Few people actually do it. And I wanted to remind everybody, no matter where you are and what you're doing, that I want you to look around and look at what normal people actually do. And if you look at it, you begin to realize, like, wait a minute, this is amazing that I'm actually even doing something and I'm trying with something with this particular thing. Now, why do I want to talk about this sort of broken image of academia? And I think it's a broken image more in general. I wanted to make sure that lots of people would watch this. So I was thinking about this. That it's this belief that we are rank ordered based on the outcomes that we actually have, that somehow these observable outcomes mean something. And the reason why I was thinking about this was that, I see these hucksters, I guess you might want to say, that are online, that are doing things that are somewhat shady. And I think to myself, how is it that people actually fall prey to this kind of stuff? And I think the reason why people fall prey to that is that they believe that they can link these two particular outcomes or these things together, where they look at what is going on the surface and they think that I can sort of mimic and behave and get those outcomes by simply doing the sort of simple things that those particular individuals are actually doing in a very what's called a mimetic learning. So you just mimic somebody and not really understand what's actually going on. And the broken image with academia is that if we simply just look at outcomes, if we just simply look at the, you rank order, I don't know, professors, or you rank order, grants, or any of these kind of things, what you might sort of look at typically in academia, that actually means something, that is indicative of a bigger grand scheme of maybe it's effort, quality, whatever you want to say. And I've been doing this long enough that I don't believe that's the case. And I think the case is actually a lot more simpler. I want you to see people that come into work, they do their thing, and then they go home. And they do that repeatedly, right? They come into work, do their thing, go home, and they live a peaceful and happy life. And that's hard. I know that all of those things are really hard. I'm a tormented individual. You looked at me from the outside, you probably think that, hey, he lives a peaceful and happy life. In my mind, it's all, I'm torn. But I want you to sort of think about that, right? If we simply look at outcomes, you don't see any of those actions. You neglect any of those particular actions that are going on, and we just presume that those outcomes are very simple to sort of, that they result from some simple actions. And what you find out that it's often not the case. And I am more of the belief that you should be looking at normal people, everyday people that have lived a life that's fairly fulfilled for an extended period of time and look to see how they actually did it, rather than mimicking the higher echelons of whatever particular social order you want to look at, whether it is you know, the folks that are on social media and Instagram and doing all the distorting themselves in many different ways, which is fine. But, or whether it's in academia or whatever, they're distorting themselves in all sorts of different ways, which is fine. But I want you to think about, how can I, as an individual, live a life where I'm okay with who I am? And I can go home and I could believe in who I am and say, hey, I actually tried. I did these things, right? And if you start decomposing this in a very simplistic way, you begin to realize that most people that play those games, they're tormented in so many different ways. But instead, if you just simply live your life, you do your thing, you go home, and you try to do as best as you possibly can every day, then you end up getting results inevitably, but you feel good with who you are, and you never turn into that particular individual that you feel tormented about and you feel not so good about. Right? And I think you should sort of think about that. And it's kind of teetering on the sort of ethics and all that kind of stuff, but it's thinking about, who do I want to be? What does that person actually look like? And if you want to be that broken image of whether it's academia or world or whatever that particular world is, by all means choose that and go and pursue it. But if it's that you want to become more complete, more whole, have things that give you something beyond all of this sort of checkmark stuff where there's these outcomes that you have to accomplish, and that is somehow reflective of who you are. I think for me, that's a better outcome. And I think I'm going to feel better about myself by doing that. All right, take care and have a wonderful day.